Hello, Dr. Castleberry here, Associate Professor of Communication, Media, and Ethics at MacU. We've got this. We're moving along in the video syllabus series for COM 5103, Advanced Professional Communication and Leadership Practicum. Now, I want to return to those core themes in our course title. They're not accidental. They're entirely intentional. Advanced Professional Communication and Leadership Practicum, which implies we're practicing advanced forms of personal, professional communication and even leadership communication. And so let's do this. I want it to be kind of a thought experiment for us as we go through the class. We're going to have things like video reports a couple of times in the course. We're going to have elevator speeches a couple of times in the course. And then I do believe the course will culminate in a more a higher stakes presentation, not to put too much pressure on you, that will kind of christen the completion of our class in a good way, because it's going to be driven by your ideas. A lot of independent agencies going to be available to the students of this class to develop their own ideas and head up projects in their individual vision and direction. And we know students like and appreciate that, but also this will not conflict with the potential that it ties into a real world professional opportunity that you currently have, or is maybe on deck for you coming up. All right, and so there's a great chance to sort of check mark that box that we refer to as applied humanities, to see the real world value in what we are doing. But let's pause first and go back to those keywords in the course title and give them a context for how they can encourage us, maybe add a little more pressure than we're used to. Now, those of you who don't know me, but maybe some of you do, I've kind of cut my teeth in my discipline on courses like public speaking, introduction to public speaking, fundamentals of public speaking, speech, argumentation and debate, speech practicum, and so on, right? All these sort of interrelated terms. And you know, we recognize the value of communication. We should all be better communicators, or also in the reverse philosophy that's been shared for decades and decades, the old saying, you cannot not communicate, right? So we recognize, hey, we live in a world where we all communicate all the time. Some of us communicate a lot, some of us communicate a little. We probably think many people communicate mostly verbally, but in fact, majority of our communication is nonverbal. Communication is a big thing we all do. Some of us are quieter communicators, some of us are louder communicators, right? Some of us are boisterous, some of us are humble. We have lots of different communication styles, and in this type of space, full respect for all of them. But what we can recognize collectively is that we can all individually continue to progress, meaning get better at that thing. So let's talk a little bit about how and why that matters for us in this context. Well, here we are in a graduate course. Not to put too fine a point on it, graduate courses typically, traditionally, come with a little bit more of like an air of maybe prestige and responsibility to them. If not academically related, because technically speaking, our GPAs have to be a little bit higher than maybe the lower threshold that we're allowed at an undergraduate setting. But also, to stress something of significance, if you're personally pursuing an advanced degree, right, master's degree, a PhD in something, or an MD, or what have you, right, a JD, and so on, there's real purpose behind your mission. It matters, and everything you do in that degree counts. And so what we want to do is look at that ethical side of what it means to join a much smaller and more elite group of humans that have taken the challenge to pursue an advanced degree. and we want to look at that as individual growth opportunity, okay? So when we talk about professional communication in the context of this course, and when we share, we should be thinking about our presentations and our communication efforts as at a higher level than perhaps some of the more casual presentations that we could have easily slipped by with in an undergraduate setting. And so that's not putting too much pressure on us. What it is elevating our threshold of mutual gain and support, okay? And so look for the strategic ways you can become and grow into a stronger communicator, right? And that might mean any number of ideas or strategies, but let's just look at a few. If you're primarily communicating online, that means you're going to be uploading videos. So in the previous entry, I talked about the value of either YouTube or even our internal tools in D2L like Video Note as a way to produce content. And that's, especially in a video report, nothing wrong with a Video Note project. But when we are producing a video, there are things we can think about. We don't have to be, you don't have to be a theater major or media production major to conceptualize and then get better at. Well, something, for example, let's take a term like framing, right? To frame yourself in the video in an appropriate manner makes a difference. And so we should actualize that. I just completed recently teaching a, we'll call it an off-season class with a group of students, primarily inexperienced. We could use that little C word, concurrent, some of them. And one instance in particular stood out to me again and again. It was an area that I was aiming to encourage and critique constructively from that individual. It had a tendency to put the camera in such a way when recording themselves that it appeared, at least, it may not have been the case, but it appeared that they were sort of lounging backward and kind of looking down at the same time. This kind of thing, like I've got my laptop in my lap in a recliner chair and I'm way back here, kind of like I could just fall asleep at any moment. And then I'm giving my presentation. And then sometimes it was even like, we'll take it a step further, and it was so casual. It's like, well, and then I've got my hat on too, and the only light's coming from the computer screen. That's not advanced professional communication, all right? So thinking about things like framing, right? Framing matters. Where you position yourself on the camera. Framing can matter in something like eye contact. Having an understanding of that imagined eye line, even if you don't have a physical audience, all right? No, we know, for those of us that have a presentation in front of a live physical audience, we want to be engaging different parts of the audience at different times. You never want to have to be just looking down. It kind of draws down the energy and so on, but you want to find ways to stay focused. Now, we're in this era of, not to name drop, but Zoom or other types of social media. Certainly now we've had TikTok now challenging other apps and mediums, social media platforms like Facebook or Instagram for supremacy. And what's something a lot of those users know how to lock down if they want to build their audience base? That imagined eye line, that sustained digital eye contact. It's alluring, it's enticing, it's persuasive. And so you want to be able to improve in that area too. Well, we talked about framing, talked about eye line, lighting. I mentioned it before, but record in a space where we can see you, where experiment with it, right? At least, like, give yourself an opportunity to grow through doing. And that's important for us. There are lots of ways that you can, very affordable, very cheap ways that you could enhance. Are you near a natural lighting source, a window? Or are there things like lamps that could help brighten the atmosphere of your presentation. These are all things we can think about. And why, and you know, less thinking about, oh my gosh, did I set up 5 lamps so that I would get like an, you know, some mid A instead of a B plus or whatever. That's not really where this focus should be coming from. Focus should be coming from, do I project that I'll be giving digital presentations in the next, you know, 1 to 3 to 5 years? And is digital communication more of a norm than ever, or is it less of a norm than ever? And if so, you know, do I need to get better at digital presence? Well, these are semi-rhetorical questions, but answer is, we can assume for many, yes, we want to be better at that. We want to be advanced professional communicators. You see where we're tying that back in? So thinking about these things. Occasionally students maybe have issue with sound, and I don't know what happens there. Just make sure your sound equipment, your recording devices or apps are working properly. If you record one, and I hate this, nothing makes the heart sink faster. I mean, there are other things. So this is metaphorically speaking, as a student, in the context of student work, then you get done with something like a presentation you record or whatever, and then there's some big issue, like a tech issue, and you missed it, right? It just didn't work. You may have, occasionally that may happen. Don't be afraid. Sometimes we're even better. Even though we don't want to go back and do it again, sometimes we're even better if we can go back and fix those glitches. But finally, there's practical things we can take care of. I mentioned someone wearing a hat before. This is public speaking 101. Hats typically kind of like, it's a hindrance, right? It can block eye contact. Now, I mean, do people make it work with hats all the time? Of course they do, right? And in fact, many people are like, oh, you know, I'm selling swag, right? It's from my, now click on my online shop. But if we're working on our professional communication skills, right? Now, this doesn't apply to any entrants that happen to, you know, be like rodeo cowboys on the side. By all means, wear that hat in your course clips. But think about the ways to advance your own sense of professionalism. Do you need a suit and tie every time? No, but maybe. Right? You know, one of the things we can think about is, well, okay, when is appropriate to be casual versus when should I show some kind of sign of distinction, right? And so all this video is doing and is helping highlight some of those markers, some of those ways that we can accentuate our efforts. Believe me, if this is a situation where you have to crank out your work 10 p.m. to 12 a.m., 1 a.m., and all the kids have been put to bed, and you know, you've just pulled 10-hour shifts and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you've just got to give the effort that you've got in front of you. But we've got opportunity here to grow, and we can help push you in certain directions. And our encouragement is that you're just taking advantage of all the opportunities that you can. And that's what we want for you in this course. And so think about that in the context of when we're presenting, especially that final presentation should absolutely be a formal, you know, masterpiece of what you can accomplish, and you want to give us that professional communication, like ending on a high note situation, right? But early on, some of these minor assignments, they're less to that point, but it's never too early to start trying. All right, that's enough on that topic. Appreciate you listening. Look forward to seeing how you advance as professional communicators.